Funding for this program is provided by. Additional funding provided by this is a course about justice, and we begin with a story. Suppose you're the driver of a trolley car. And your trolley car is hurtling down the track at 60 miles an hour, and at the end of the track you notice 5 workers working on the track. You tried to stop but you can't, your brakes don't work. You feel desperate because you know that if you crash into these 5 workers they will all die. Let's assume you know that for sure. And so you feel helpless until you notice that there is off to the right a side track. At the end of that track there's one worker working on track. Your steering wheel works so you can turn the trolley car if you want to onto this side track, killing the one but sparing the 5. Here's our first question: what's the right thing to do? What would you do? Let's take a poll. How many would turn the trolley car onto the side track? How many wouldn't? How many would go straight ahead? Keep your hands up, those of you who'd go straight ahead. A handful of people would. The vast majority would turn. Let's hear first. Now we need to begin to investigate the reasons why you think it's the right thing to do. Let's begin with those in the majority, who would turn to go onto side track. Why would you do it? What would be your reason? Who's willing to volunteer a reason? Go ahead, stand up. Because it can't be right to kill 5 people when you can only kill 1 person instead. It wouldn't be right to kill 5 if you could kill 1 person instead. That's a good reason. That's a good reason. Who else? Does everybody agree with that reason? Go ahead. Well, I was thinking it was the same reason. It was on 9/11. We regard the people who flew the plane into the Pennsylvania field as heroes because they chose to kill the people on the plane and not kill more people in big buildings. So the principle there was the same on 9/11. It's tragic circumstance, but better to kill 1 so that 5 can live. Is that the reason most of you have? Those of you who would turn, yes. Let's hear now from those in the minority, those who wouldn't turn. Well, I think that same type of mentality that justifies genocide and totalitarianism. In order to save one type of race you wipe out the other. So what would you do in this case? You would, to avoid the horrors of genocide, you would crash into the 5 and kill them. Presumably yes. Okay, who else? That's a brave answer, thank you. Let's consider another trolley car case and see whether those of you in the majority want to adhere to the principle. Better that 1 should die so that 5 should live. This time you're not the driver of the trolley car, you're an onlooker standing on a bridge overlooking a trolley car track, and down the track comes a trolley car. At the end of the track are 5 workers. The brakes don't work. The trolley car is about to careen into the 5 and kill them, and now you're not the driver. You really feel helpless until you notice standing next to you leaning over the bridge is a very fat man. And you could give him a shove. He would fall over the bridge onto the track right in the way of the trolley car. He would die, but he would spare the 5. Now, how many would push the fat man over the bridge? Raise your hand. How many wouldn't? Most people wouldn't. Here's the obvious question: what became of the principle better to save 5 lives even if it means sacrificing 1? What became of the principle that almost everyone endorsed in the first case? I need to hear from someone who was in the majority in both cases. As how do you explain the difference between the two? The second one, I guess, involves an active choice of pushing a person and down, which I guess that person himself would otherwise not have been involved in the situation at all, and so to choose on his behalf, I guess, to involve him in something that he otherwise would have. This escaped is, I guess, more than what you have in the first case, where the 3 parties, the driver and the 2 sets of workers, are already, I guess, in this situation. But the guy working, the one on the track off to the side, he didn't choose to sacrifice his life any more than the fat guy did he? That's true, but he was on the tracks. This guy was on the bridge. Go ahead, you can come back if you want. Alright, it's a hard question, but you did well, you did very well. It's a hard question. Who else can find a way of reconciling the reaction of the majority in these 2 cases? Yes, well, I guess in the first case where you have the 1 worker and the 5, it's a choice between those 2, and you have to make a certain choice, and people are going to die because of the trolley car. Not necessarily because of your direct actions. The trolley car is a runway thing, and you need to make in a split-second choice, whereas pushing the fat man over is an actual act of murder on your part. You have control over that, whereas you may not have control over the trolley car. So I think that it's a slightly different situation. Alright, who has a reply? Is that, who has a reply to that? No, that was good. Who has a way? Who wants to reply? Is that a way out of this? I don't think that's a very good reason, because you choose. Either way, you have to choose who dies, because you either choose to turn and kill a person, which is an active conscious thought to turn, or you choose to push the fat man over, which is also an active conscious action. So either way you're making a choice. Do you want to reply? Well, I'm not really sure that that's the case. It just still seems kind of different. The act of actually pushing someone over onto the tracks and killing them, you are actually killing him yourself. You're pushing him with your own hands. You're pushing in. That's different than steering something that is going to cause death into another. You know it doesn't really sound right saying it now when I'm up here. No, that's good. What's your name? Andrew. Andrew, and let me ask you this question, Andrew. Suppose standing on the bridge next to the fat man, I didn't have to push him. Suppose he was standing over a trapdoor that I could open by turning a steering wheel like that, would you turn it? For some reason that still just seems more wrong. I mean, maybe if you just accidentally leaned into this steering wheel or something like that. Or say that the car is hurtling towards a switch that will drop the trap, then I could agree with that. Fair enough. It still seems wrong in a way that it doesn't seem wrong in the first case to turn, you say, and in another way, I mean in the first situation you're involved directly with the situation, in the second one you're an onlooker as well. So you have the choice of becoming involved or not by pushing the fat man. Let's forget for the moment about this case. That's good, but let's imagine a different case. This time you're doctor in an emergency room. And 6 patients come to you. They've been in a terrible trolley car wreck. 5 of them sustained moderate injuries. 1 is severely injured. You could spend all day caring for the 1 severely injured victim, but in that time the 5 would die, or you could look after the 5, restore them to health, but during that time the 1 severely injured person would die. How many would save the 5 now as the doctor? How many would save the 1? Very few people, just a handful of people. Same reason, I assume. 1 life versus 5. Now consider another doctor case. This time you're a transplant surgeon and you have 5 patients, each in desperate need of an organ transplant in order to survive. On needs a heart, 1 a lung, 1 a kidney, 1 a liver, and the 5th a pancreas. And you have no organ donors. You are about to see them die, and then it occurs to you that in the next room there's a healthy guy who came in for a checkup, and he is you like that, and he's taking a nap. You could go in very quietly. Yank out the 5 organs. That person would die, but you can save the 5. How many would do it? Anyone. How many? Put your hands up if you would do it. Anyone in the balcony? You would. Be careful, don't lean over too much. How many wouldn't? All right. What do you say? Speak up in the balcony, you who would yank out the organs. Why? I'd actually like to explore slightly alternate possibility of just taking the 1 of the 5 he needs an organ who dies first and using their 4 healthy organs to save the other 4. That's a pretty good idea. That's a great idea, except for the fact that you just wrecked the philosophical point. Let's step back from these stories and these arguments to notice a couple of things about the way the arguments have began to unfold. Certain moral principles have already begun to emerge from the discussions we've had, and let's consider what those moral principles look like. The first moral principle that emerged from the discussion said that the right thing to do, the moral thing to do, depends on the consequences that will result from your action at the end of the day. Better that 5 should live even if 1 must die. That's an example of consequentialist moral reasoning. Consequentialist moral reasoning locates morality in the consequences of an act, in the state of the world that will result from the thing you do. But then we went a little further, we considered those other cases, and people weren't so sure about consequentialist moral reasoning when people hesitated to push the fat man over the bridge or to yank out the organs of the innocent patient. People gestured towards reasons having to do with the intrinsic quality of the act itself. Consequences be what they may. People were reluctant. People thought it was just wrong, categorically wrong, to kill a person, an innocent person, even for the sake of saving 5 lives. At least these people thought that in the second version of each story we reconsidered. So this points a second categorical way of thinking about moral reasoning. Categorical moral reasoning locates morality in certain absolute moral requirements, in certain categorical duties and rights regardless of the consequences. We're going to explore in the days and weeks to come the contrast between consequentialist and categorical moral principles. The most influential example of consequential moral reasoning is utilitarianism, a doctrine invented by Jeremy Bentham, the 18th century English political philosopher. The most important philosopher of categorical moral reasoning is the 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant. So we will look at those 2 different modes of moral reasoning, assess them, and also consider others. If you look at the syllabus, you'll notice that we read a number of great and famous books. Books by Aristotle, John Locke, Immanuel Kant, John Stuart Mill, and others. You'll notice too from the syllabus that we don't only read these books, we also all take up contemporary political and legal controversies that raise philosophical questions. We will debate equality and inequality, affirmative action, free speech versus hate speech, same-sex marriage, military conscription, a range of practical questions. Why not just to enliven these abstract and distant books, but to make clear, to bring out what's at stake in our everyday lives, including our political lives, for philosophy. So we will read these books and we will debate these issues, and we'll see how each informs and illuminates the other. This may sound appealing enough, but here I have to issue a warning. And the warning is this: to read these books in this way, as an exercise in self-knowledge, to read them in this way carries certain risks that are both personal and political, risks that every student of political philosophy have known. These risks spring from that fact that philosophy teaches us and unsettles us by confronting us with what we already know. There's an irony: the difficulty of this course consists in the fact that it teaches what you already know. It works by taking what we know from familiar unquestioned settings and making it strange. That's how those examples worked the hypotheticals with which we began, with their mix of playfulness and sobriety. It's also how these philosophical books work. Philosophy estranges us from the familiar not by supplying new information but by inviting and provoking a new way of seeing. But, and here's the risk, once the familiar turns strange, it's never quite the same again. Self-knowledge is like lost innocence: however unsettling you find it, it can never be unthought or unknown. What makes this enterprise difficult but also riveting is that moral and political philosophy is a story, and you don't know where this story will lead, but what you do know is that the story is about you. Those are the personal risks. Now what of the political risks? One way of introducing a course like this would be to promise you that by reading these books and debating these issues you will become a better, more responsible citizen. You will examine the presuppositions of public policy, you will hone your political judgment, you'll become a more effective participant in public affairs. But this would be a partial and misleading promise. Political philosophy for the most part hasn't worked that way. You have to allow for the possibility that political philosophy